Okay. All right. Mm-mm. Okay. All right, y'all. I just wanted to get on here and talk a little bit of boxing today. I know we always talk WMMA. That's why I came on at 3:30 this time and said I'm gonna come on here and talk some boxing, man. I want to talk about this big fight coming up. So probably be on here like 30 minutes. Yeah, probably like 30 minutes or so. Just wanted to talk about this fight. This is a big fight coming up. It's been a while. It's been a while since we had like a major fight in boxing. You know what I mean? Like we we've been waiting and waiting throughout this year for like a major fight to happen. Everybody's been waiting for Spence Crawford. Everybody's been waiting for either Anthony Joshua to fight Tyson Fury or Tyson Fury to fight Deontay Wilder. But actually, man, this fight, it kind of came out of left field, man. Like, I didn't see this fight coming. Hey, Marcus Bell, what's going on, man? I didn't see this fight coming. This fight was actually like just announced on Manny and Errol's Instagram and on the PBC website, their Instagram. Like, I was just surprised like how it popped up because Manny Pacquiao has been in talks to fight with so many people except Errol Spence. He's been in talks to fight with um let's see, Ryan Garcia, Conor McGregor, everybody like that, but he's never really been in like in talks to fight like a major fight with somebody like Errol Spence. So I said, let me get on here and just talk about this fight a little bit because I ain't want to start talking boxing some more. So we gotta bring some more boxing fans over here in the streams for boxing. But let me get started here in a minute. I'm just pulling something up. Hang on one second. All right. Okay. One second here. Mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm. All right. Here we go. All right, let's see. Yeah, Marcus, a fight we can watch, right? Right. Yeah, this is a legit fight. A legend taking on a legit fight. Like I said, I'm not watching any of those exhibition fights. I know they don't have anything to do with boxing for real, but I'm not really touching on those anymore. Like I'm not even paying attention to to Ron Woodley Paul fight either. So yeah, man. Like I said, I wanted to get on here and talk about Manny Pacquiao taking on Errol Spence. This fight is scheduled for August 21st. It's going down, and supposedly this fight's going to be for all three belts on their side. Uh, Errol Spence, he's got the WBC belt, the IBF belt, and Manny Pacquiao, he's supposedly supposed to be reinstated as the WBA champion. So if that happens, that's going to make this fight even better because that's going to pull us closer to one more champion. We're going to have the belts all in one fighter's hands. Well, almost. With Terrence Crawford, he's going to have a belt, of course, and then that's going to push us closer to a fight, with the winner of this fight facing off against Terrence Crawford, hopefully. But first off, man, like, when I heard Manny Pacquiao was accepting this fight, I was like, okay, I got to give him some props. Like, my reaction was, look, I'm glad he's accepting this fight, because, it's another fight to build his legacy. He continues to stay around in the sport. He's not really doing any exhibition matches like, Floyd at this point. He refuses to retire, even though he's like, 43 years old now, 42, 43. He refuses to retire. So if he's going to hang around and hold a belt, he has to fight good competition. He has to be in there fighting good competition. That goes with anybody like we talk about in MMA. If you're going to stay around the game, you got to stay active, right, Marcus? I mean, we always talk about Joanna holding down the number 2 spot in the strawweight division over there, but it's like, are you really keeping that spot? If you're not doing anything, you need to be removed. So Manny Pacquiao, he was kind of in that same situation. It's been 2 years since he's fought. I know there was a pandemic, but at the same time, he was trying to go for Conor McGregor and Ryan Garcia and so on. But he was holding on to that belt. So the WBA, they said, look, we're gonna take this belt from you. You know what I mean? But since he's gonna make this fight, they're supposed to give him the belt back. Hey, Genesis, what's up? So if he does that, that's cool. I mean, if he's gonna take on Errol Spence, then fine. Give him the belt back. That'll make it for 3 of the belts. But yeah, like I said, I just wanted to talk about this fight real quick. Is how I think it would go, just like an early look at the fight. Because Manny Pacquiao, he's been doing a lot of talking leading up to this fight. For somebody we felt was ducking, he's been doing a lot of talking, like on why he's taking this fight. He acts like he really sees some holes in Errol's game. Everybody says that about Errol, though. Like Mikey Garcia said it. Mikey said, "Hey, I see something. I see something in him, right?" But Manny Pacquiao, he feels like Errol Spence is too slow for him. He feels like he's too slow. He feels like he's missing a step. He feels like he can go in there and do what he did to so many other fighters. He feels like he could really just go in there and depend on his speed. That's his main objective, is to go in there, use speed, and try to control this fight with that speed that, Errol Spence has never seen before. But I think it's going to take more than that. And I mean, at this point in Manny Pacquiao's career, I don't know if that's going to be so dominant. I don't know if the speed is going to be there for 12 rounds or however long he needs it. Errol Spence, his main thing is to go in there and try to stop Manny Pacquiao. It looks like he's really training to stop him. Leonard Ellerbe said he's looking to try to end Manny Pacquiao's career, which I believe that. This is the biggest fight of Errol's career, and he's been wanting this fight. He's been calling for it since he fought Sean Porter. So this is a fight he's looking for, and he wants that other belt. And I feel like he is going to bring that energy. It's not all talk with him. He's not like Keith Thurman that's going to be doing a lot of talking. He's going to sell it with his actions. So I think, man, like what they're both saying is really going to be valid on what they're going to do. It's not just a bunch of talk. I know Errol's probably going to be looking to knock him out. He is going to be looking to finish the older man. And I know that Manny, he is going to be who he is, and that's that fast fighter. But looking at it like skill-wise, man, like let's say just looking at some of Manny Pacquiao, some of his past fights compared to some of his recent fights, my question is, look, if Manny depends on his speed in this fight, like how effective is that going to be? I know Errol has never seen speed and, combinations thrown like this before, but at the same time, Manny Pacquiao doesn't have that same type of speed anymore. Let's be honest. He doesn't have that type of speed and that type of athleticism and the reflexes he had, say like the 2009 Pacquiao, not even the 2012 Pacquiao. I feel like he's about half of that, which is still something Errol's never seen before. But I think really that speed won't be as effective as as it was, let's say, like in 2017, like it was against Adrian Broner. I think he might have it for a few rounds, but I'm not sure if he's going to be able to dictate the pace against a bigger, stronger fighter like Errol Spence, with just those combinations and just that speed, and it also depends on the type of defense, and how that fighter uses their reach. When Manny Pacquiao fought big guys and he could be in and out against big guys like Antonio Margarito, well, Antonio Margarito, he doesn't really have like an IQ. He's a slugger. He'll come in there and just throw down, and he just continues to walk forward. He walks forward. He'll take punches to get off punches. And that's what Manny Pacquiao was dependent on, just to let him continue to come forward, and I just tattoo him. I just tattoo him up all night. As he keeps walking forward, he's not really blocking these shots. I'm gonna just keep beating him up until I break him down. That's why he broke his eye socket. Margarito is what, 5'11", and he's just all around big. He was all around big welterweight, but he had no defense. So a guy like that, he's gonna be open. A big guy like that will be open. He's big, slow, and one-dimensional. But Errol Spence, he's a guy that's big. He's strong. He's a little bit slower than Manny Pacquiao, but you got to look at what he does. He uses more skill sets. He has more dimensions to him. He can box. He can fight on the inside. He can use his range well. He can. He can. Nobody ever really notices that he can fight off the back foot, but he can. But he just chooses to come forward more so and walk you down. But at the same time, when he's walking you down, he's measuring the distance well. He's not just walking in the shots like a Margarito. So I've heard some people trying to compare it to that fight. They're thinking that, Manny Pacquiao is just going to piece him up like he did in Margarito. But that was that's two different time periods, and that's two different Mannys. And Spence and Margarito, they're two different fighters. So you can't really compare it to that. So as far as his speed being effective, I think it will for like the first few rounds. But if you're not really adding too many dimensions to it, and I don't know if, again, like I said, Manny Pacquiao, he can keep up that type of energy like he did before, I don't think it's going to be effective throughout the whole fight. Because, speed can be timed. We talk about that even with some MMA fights. You got fast fighters, high work rate fighters, like we talked about Joanna throwing fast hands. That can be nullified, like against a sharper precision puncher that can see everything coming, that can measure distance well. Like when Joanna fought Valentina, that's two different styles, two different strikers, but one striker is keeping good range, and they're keeping up that time, and they're keeping the rhythm of their opponent. They're keeping that rhythm better than the actual opponent. You know what I mean? Like Valentina's actually having Joanna's rhythm down better than she does. So that's how you confuse that fighter. So if Manny Pacquiao comes in there with that same in and out style, I think that, Errol Spence, eventually he'll catch that rhythm. I think a lot of fighters don't catch the rhythm because they're worried about the punches coming. They're worried about those combinations coming and, taking, 2 or 3 hits. And they're worried about, the power overall and getting knocked down. So they're not really taking the time to, go through trial and error in there. I think Errol Spence, he's a smarter fighter than people realize. He's going to go in there and, keep his hands up, and he will try to figure that timing out. He's going to try to figure those angles out. Because, hold on, let me check this chat real quick. Marcus said Pacquiao must forgot about Marquez, in which he wasn't fast but timed the punch that knocked out Pacquiao. Right, yeah. And, Marquez, it took him 4 fights to get that down. And, and he's smaller than, he's smaller than Errol Spence, and he was able to lay Manny out. So Manny Pacquiao really does have to be careful of that type of approach in a fight with Errol Spence. Errol Spence Jr. is going to be keeping distance well. He will be looking to time those big shots. And my thing is this, if Keith Thurman could get off big punches on Manny Pacquiao when Manny started to slow down in that second half, I think that, Errol is definitely going to land big shots, and he hits a hell of a lot harder than Keith Thurman, so believe me, if he takes any big number of shots that it's like the same number of shots he took from like Thurman, if he takes those shots from Spence, I think, Spence could really do damage and hurt him. Because, Keith Thurman was able to land some hard right hands and, rattle Manny Pacquiao a little bit. So Manny, in his interviews, mostly he's saying that I'm going to win this fight with my speed. Errol Spence is too slow. We're going to go in there and use the speed. That's kind of been everybody's, that's kind of been his game plan. That's everybody else's game plan that's talking about this fight. Freddie Roach is believing that all of a sudden now Manny Pacquiao has the speed and he's like prime Manny. Of course, he's saying that because, he's cornering him. But, I mean, let's be real. Like, it's going to take more than speed at this point. I think the longer a fighter's been around, of course, this younger generation of this younger era of fighters that are coming up, they're gonna have your style down at some point. They're gonna study you. Like Errol Spence, he's probably been watching Manny Pacquiao fights, of course, before he was fighting. So he studied the fights. His trainer studied the fights. They've been watching him. They've watched his highlights. They watched all of his fights, and they know the type of style he brings. They watched him in his wins. They know how he lost. So their whole game plan is to go in there and kind of repeat what guys like Marquez did and Floyd Mayweather did. And that type of style, those are the type of styles that really are the kryptonite of Manny Pacquiao. That type of style where you can measure distance well and you can pump a straight jab right down the pipe on Manny Pacquiao. I know he's a southpaw. People always say orthodox jabs don't work, but if you pump a jab out in Manny's face, it'll work because he darts straight in. His key is to make a beeline for you. So if you pump that straight jab out, you will be able to keep him back. Floyd was able to do it. Marquez was able to do it. And, like I said, Marquez, he probably could write the book on it now because he fought him 4 times. So I really think that, the angles and speed, that's going to be effective for a few rounds, but I think he's going to have to come up with more of a game plan. And it's really hard for me to see a fighter of Manny's size coming up with, an alternative to nullifying the bigger, stronger man. Because like they say, the bigger, stronger, good fighter always beats the smaller, good fighter, right? The big, strong fighter, the good, big fighter always beats the small, good fighter, right? That's how it goes in boxing. So whenever you take away Manny's speed and, that those reflexes, what else is he going to have that's going to go in there and nullify Errol Spence? Errol Spence doesn't depend on speed. He has a few more dimensions to his style. He can fight on the inside. He's got a good body attack. He can switch from a boxer to a puncher. So after, say, maybe 3 or 4 rounds, whenever Manny Pacquiao starts to slow down, what will be his attack? Will it just be his hand speed at that point? I don't know. It's got to be more to it. See, again, Errol Spence, I think with his reach and his timing and his straight punches, I think he will be able to, nullify that speed after a bit. I think the fight might have a texture kind of like, let's see. I think it might be like Antonio Tarver and Roy Jones, that first fight, where Antonio Tarver, he was able to just really put that pressure on Roy. Because Roy at that point, had moved down from heavyweight. He was a little bit slower. And, his reflexes weren't the same. He was still fast, but not the same. So a southpaw, like a tall, long southpaw like Antonio Tarver was able to put that pressure on. He was able to land his jab on Roy Jones, straight down the middle. That jab was very effective. It really started to swell Roy's eye up after a few rounds because he was touching him with it. He was constantly hitting him with the jab. He constantly put him on the ropes. So that's something I could see somebody like Errol Spence doing. He's 2 or 3 inches taller than Manny Pacquiao, and I think his reach is like what? He has like a 4-inch reach advantage, 3 or 4-inch reach advantage over Manny. So this might be that type of fight with that tall, long fighter with better timing will eventually catch up to the slowing, the older, slower, yet faster fighter. You know what I mean? That's kind of half of himself, if you will. But let me pull up something here. I actually wanted to. I was just looking at this clip of Manny and his Keith Thurman fight here. And then you got to factor in that Manny Pacquiao, he's also been out for 2 years. His last fight was July 2019 against Keith Thurman, and that was a tough fight. That was a split decision win for him. That was a real tough fight. And now he's coming back after a year and some change off against Errol Spence. I got to give him credit for taking that fight, though. I mean, that's a tough fight. Coming right back into the game, that's a tough fight. But that's going to be a big factor, and that's going to be a big factor. That's going to be a big factor. It's going to be a big advantage for Errol. I mean, they think it's an advantage for them that Errol was in an accident and he may have lost a step from that. But, Errol Spence coming back against Danny Garcia, he looks sharp. Of course, he didn't look like the same Errol, but he looked sharp. He definitely looked sharp. He was able to dominate and control a power puncher like Danny Garcia. Of course, that's two different fighters, but he was always on his game and he was always sharp. He never really took big shots from Danny Garcia. And let's see here. Errol's got about a 5-inch reach advantage on Manny Pacquiao and a 3-inch height advantage. So Errol Spence, as long as he fights long and tall in this fight and he stays completely on the outside, I think he'll be pretty effective. I think Manny, there's going to have to be more dimensions to his game in this fight, I think. He just can't depend on the speed. He was able to depend on the speed in the Keith Thurman fight, for so long, which I might go back and watch that fight. I might actually go back and watch that fight because he was able to kind of fluster Keith Thurman early on. He dropped him early in the fight, which that's probably going to come with the game. Keith Thurman is going to want to try. Keith Thurman was trying to box with him. He was trying to stay on the outside, and as he took a step back, Manny Pacquiao clipped him and landed that left hand and dropped him. Put him on his butt, man. But later on, when Manny started to fight on the inside and slow down, that's where Keith Thurman started landing more punches. He started landing more clean right hands and started rocking Manny a little bit. So when you factor in the time off and then just the fact that he's not the same Manny, understand, man. Y'all gotta understand, man. Errol Spence, he's gonna be landing. He's gonna be landing in this fight, and like I said, he hits harder than Keith Thurman. So might be looking at Manny Pacquiao might be getting put out of there. That's not my final prediction because I still want to go back and look at some more footage, but that's kind of what I'm leaning towards on how this fight would play out at this point. Because I think Errol, he's durable. He's big, he's strong, and really, Manny hasn't been in there with the fighter of this type of caliber in a while. Because you got to factor in, again, Keith Thurman was out for like a year and a half. Keith Thurman was out for a minute, nearly 2 years, I think, when he fought Manny. And then, Adrian Broner, that fight wasn't really, Adrian Broner, that wasn't really like a big fight for, like, big caliber of a fight for Manny Pacquiao either. It wasn't like a solid boxer because, Adrian Broner's not letting his hands go. Then before that, Lucas Matisse, he stopped him. Lucas Matisse really wasn't the same. The Jeff Horn fight, I thought Manny won that fight, but if you go back and watch that fight, Jeff Horn, big, 5'9" welterweight, he was able to lay on Manny in that fight. He was able to kind of nullify the speed and, put his head on Manny, put the strength on Manny, put his size on Manny. So that was kind of a changing right there. You could see like the changing of the height and the guy that's going to be rough and tough with him, they can nullify his speed. And before that, he fought Jesse Vargas and so on, back in 2016. So really not since the Tim Bradley fighting Floyd Mayweather, I don't think, Manny Pacquiao has really fought like somebody this complete. Errol Spence is probably the more complete fighter of everybody he's fought up to starting with the Jesse Vargas fight. He's more complete than Jesse Vargas, Jeff Horn, Lucas Matisse, Keith Thurman, and Adrian Broner. So this is a big task at hand. Nobody really looked at it like that, I don't think. But, yeah, it's going to be a big task. They just think speed all day. But I think Errol Spence is I think he's got the keys, man. I think he's definitely got the keys and the tools. But for me, like, just looking back at some of Manny's fights, I was like, man, like, if he's not on his game, if he's not on his feet, if Manny's not moving, if he's not in and out constantly, he will get hurt in this fight. Because, again, the size. You gotta factor in the size because Errol knows how to use his size in his fights. Knows how to use his size. He uses his power well. But yeah, man, I just wanted to get on here and talk about this fight a little bit. I'm about to jump off here in a minute. I just wanted to do a little early look. So it looks like the WBA they are reinstating Manny Pacquiao, I think, for his WBA belt. So that's going to be for 3 belts. That's interesting, man. So that's going to make this fight even more interesting because then whoever wins, they'll have 3 belts. For Errol Spence, that'll be a big thing. If Errol wins, he'll have 3 belts. Push him towards the Terrence Crawford fight. If Manny Pacquiao wins, he'll done something Floyd Mayweather's never done. He's won 3 belts, unified the welterweight division, and possibly might get a Terrence Crawford fight if he wants it. So there's a lot riding on this fight. There's definitely a lot riding on this fight. But yeah, if there's anything else, like I said, if I want to talk about this fight that just kind of crosses my mind, I'll probably jump back on here and we'll talk, because it's interesting. It's definitely an interesting matchup. Oh, yeah, I know what I was going to say. The last thing I was going to say, yeah, this fight, it could be like Winky Wright versus Shane Mosley, too, as well. Like, you got the bigger, longer, strong welterweight. That's the southpaw in Errol Spence versus the smaller, faster fighter, where you had the same type of texture with Winky Wright and Shane Mosley. Winky Wright was able to control Shane Mosley all night in both fights with that jab. His jab and his straight left hand, just pushing him back, landing, coming forward, walking him down with his high guard. And that's another way to nullify speed. If you just continue to put pressure on them and you land good shots and you keep your guard up and they can't get off on you, so gonna be a tough task for Manny, tougher than a lot of people think. It's gonna be more than speed. You're gonna need more than speed in this fight. But yeah, man, let me get up out here. Like I said, I just want to come on here and talk about this fight, for a few minutes. And yeah, I'll probably jump back on about 7. We'll talk some WMMA. Definitely gonna talk some WMMA later tonight. I know Clarissa Shields' fight is like 10 o'clock at night, so I was like, damn. Definitely ain't getting on live at 10 p.m. to watch that. And I'll probably watch it while I'm laying down, but what? Well, let's see. Anything else here? Dalton Voss said, I respect Manny, but Errol too big and too powerful. I got Errol by 11th round stoppage. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that, Dalton, because once you take out Manny's speed, Dalton, it's kind of hard to say what else can he do. Like, what else can Manny do? Like, what else can he use to get in on a big man, right? Like, take away Manny's speed and take away those abilities to jump in and out at, awkward angles and throw rapid fire combinations. What else can you depend on? See, I think Errol Spence, if he wants, he can push this fight on the inside if he wants, and lay on Manny like Jeff Horn did. But when he lays on Manny, he can work the body. He can work the body and break him down that way. Kind of how Keith Thurman was able to do in the later rounds. Start laying on Manny and being rough in the inside. I think, what else? Like, outside fight. Outside boxing. That'll favor favor Errol Spence. As long as Errol Spence uses his long jab and his timing, he can keep this fight on the outside and just time Manny with good straight left hands. And those are big shots. Like I said, he's a harder hitter than Keith Thurman. So, you take that accumulation, it could lead to a stoppage. So, yeah, I'm not too far off from there, dog. Dalton said Clarissa fighting tonight. Yeah, Yeah, she's fighting in the PFL on ESPN tonight at about 10 p.m. So, but yeah, I was looking at. Hold on, I was just playing this clip here now. Manny Pacquiao and Keith Thurman, and Keith Thurman did land some big shots in that fight. He did land some hard punches in that fight that kind of rattled Manny Pacquiao a little bit. Let's see. Just seeing if they are Manny Pacquiao. Or they give him his WBA belt back. If they give him that belt back, yeah, that'll be even bigger, man. Let's see. So they gave it to Udenis Ugas. They gave it to Udenis Ugas. So we'll see if they give it back to Manny. Because there is going to be a big. This fight does hold a lot of weight. This fight holds a lot of weight, so they probably would do that. I mean, I don't think Ugas should feel bad. Maybe they'll put him back down to the regular belt, and maybe he could be the first defense for whoever wins this fight. Dalton said, bad matchup for Manny. Errol's too physical, and the body shots will tell the story. Yeah, Keith is no pressure fighter like Errol. Respect to Manny, though. Dalton said, I can't stand Manny Pacquiao fanatics. I was going for Manny, but now I want Errol to retire him. Yeah, I like Manny, too. Yeah, I'm definitely a Manny fan. I've always been a Manny Pacquiao fan, but, I'm an Errol fan, too, and sometimes I think it's time for a changing. It is a changing of the champs now. I want to see Errol kind of set the bar here. I want to see Errol go for something that some of these other fighters didn't do. I want to see him unify. I want to see him stack his resume up since he wants to do it. Errol seems to be like the only guy in the welterweight division racking names up. Whether it be Danny, Sean, Kell, now Manny. He seems to be taking on the bigger fights at welterweight. I mean, all the while, we got Terrence Crawford up here with the belt, and he's defended his belt by knockout 4 or 5 times, but it's not the same caliber of opponents. Yeah, a lot of Manny Pacquiao fans too, like you're saying, they're depending on Manny Pacquiao to use this speed and just destroy Errol. But I'm like, no, like Errol's a big, strong fighter, man. Like, y'all got it twisted. Y'all got to understand, Manny Pacquiao he's up there in age, man, and this might be the fight. Dealing with a physical fighter like Errol and somebody who throws body shots like that's going to be a hell of a lot more trouble, because Manny, he can do well against certain types of boxers. Boxers like Chris Algieri and boxers like Tim Bradley, because they'll be on the outside, but they don't have his timing down. They don't have very good timing like, Marquez or Floyd or even Keith Thurman. Like, they don't really have that type of timing. Like, Manny can be in and out on those guys because even Tim Bradley doesn't have that type of reach, So he can go in, leap in, hit him hard, make him respect him. Same with, Chris Algieri. Chris Algieri at the time too, he was a bit green when he took Manny on. He was green, and he had the style that Manny could just capitalize on. He's always like bouncing on his feet, trying to turn angles. And, Manny, he knows how to dart in and knock you off balance and drop you. Because he dropped Chris Algieri like 6-7 times in that fight. So if you're going to be using a lot of movement, that kind of plays into Manny's favor. See, Floyd ain't going to be doing a lot of movement. Floyd's going to be measuring and taking steps back and, getting good distance. Marquez, he finally figured that out, throughout his fights with Manny Pacquiao. He was able to always keep good distance and time him. He started timing that in and out style. And yeah, that's gonna have to be Errol's biggest, game plan in this fight is just to control and take them legs away. Start taking those legs away. Um, I think when the legs go, when the legs go with Manny, it's gonna be a rough night. It's gonna be a rough, rugged fight. Like I've never seen like maybe I have to go back and look at some of his later fights. I never seen Manny just fights more so stationary. I mean, he can't because he's shorter and he doesn't have that reach. But a slower Manny is definitely gonna be. It's definitely gonna spell danger for him. Especially whenever the guys are so big at welterweight. Like a slow Manny. The main thing for Manny Pacquiao that kept him going, of course, is the speed. But when you take that away in a division full of guys that are like 5'6", 5'8", and up, and bigger and longer, a slow, small fighter is gonna lose to them big, long fighters. A slow, small fighter is gonna lose to the big, long fighters in the division. The big, long, good fighters in the division because the smaller fighter that was once fast, he won't have that speed anymore. He doesn't have that athleticism anymore. He won't have a way to get on the inside anymore. So, very dangerous, man. That's what I'm saying. Like, is he going to have the legs for this fight? 2 years off? Oh, dog said good stream. Oh, appreciate it, man. Thanks. Like I said, I'll probably do more boxing streams around this time. I usually do a lot of MMA stuff over here, but want to get back on the boxing. As long as there's good boxing matches like this, I'll be on here talking boxing more. I will talk boxing more, man. But like boxing's hadn't been making the matches like MMA, Dalton. So it kind of kept me away, but I need to get back on it. They keep making fights like this, I'm gonna get back on it, Dalton. Look, I'm gonna get back on boxing more. Cause that's my one love. It's over MMA, but boxing for sure. Yeah, I remember that fight. Yeah, Morales Pacquiao won. Yeah, Manny stood right in front of Eric Morales. Eric Morales hard puncher too. And he was that the first fight where he opened up that big cut on Manny Pacquiao. He opened up a big cut on Manny, and he had his timing down. I think he definitely had his timing down. He really was going tit for tat with Manny, but he got the better of Manny in that fight. Yeah, that was a classic, man. Shoot. All three of them fights. But let's see here, man. Yeah, because when you think about it, the more and more I'm just looking at stuff while I'm talking to y'all, looking at these clips here, like what can I know what Errol Spence can do to nullify the speed of Manny Pacquiao. The blueprint's kind of out there. Like I mentioned earlier, the fighters I mentioned earlier, like the fights that have happened in the past, like Roy Jones versus Antonio Tarver 1. That's a good example of how a tall, long fighter can nullify speed. Winky Wright versus Shane Mosley, both of those fights, that's a good example of how you can nullify speed. You can nullify speed with, timing, strength, and a long jab. Fights like that, if you're dealing with that rapid, fast fighter, you can nullify him. But Manny, yeah, his work rate and his ability to back Errol up is going to have to be a key to me early on. Like, Manny's going to have to make Errol fight a little bit more uncomfortable, like fighting off the back foot more, where he can't sit down on his punches. But when you let Errol get down and dirty, start sitting down on them punches in his stance, yeah, he's going to start he will start cutting the boxing ring off and start landing. He's going to land. Dalton said Manny needs to hurt Errol with a cut or a body blow that lingers during the mid and late rounds. That's the only way I see Manny winning. Yeah, really, really like. Yeah, yeah, more and more you could we kind of more and more I'm just looking at it like I'm really having a tough time finding a way like and like I said I've watched Manny fight for years, but I've seen what happened to fighters that lose their speed. You know what I mean? Like I've seen what happened to fighters that lose their speed and they continue to fight. You know, with guys that even slow down in their fights, like Amir Khan when he slows down in a fight, he's a sitting duck. Roy Jones since he lost his legs from moving down to heavyweight, fights have been started to become harder. He started getting pressured on the ropes. For Manny, 2 years in inactivity, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to really really think like what other alternatives are there before, like you said, he probably got to do some serious damage. Like his left hand has to be cutting Errol. He's got to start really cutting him, landing them hard shots. Yeah, yeah. Errol's jab is definitely going to have to be a key in this fight. And him being a southpaw and Manny being a southpaw, it will be more so lined up where he can get that jab off. He can get that straight right hand off. Well, that straight right jab off, and then he can land that straight left hand. And it's got to be body shots. As soon as you get him to the corner. Like Manny could stay on the outside all night. I think like he could probably use angles to stay on the outside as far as defense. But when it comes down to like offense, can he get in and do damage? Will he get in and do damage, and will he be effective like as he leaps in, or will he get clocked? All right, let's see here. So Dalton, while I got you here, man, like what do you think about Terrence Crawford? Where does he stand in the welterweight division to you? Like I said, I haven't really, been talking about box too much over here, but I need to. Like I've been following, of course, I'm always following what's going down. So what do you think, Dalton, like of Terrence Crawford? Where does he stand in the welterweight division to you? I think Terrence would have been a dangerous fight for Manny too. Like I think Terrence, he will trade a little bit more. He takes some shots, and I think his chin would be open for a few of those punches. So it's hard to say like if he would just like completely overpower Manny. Yeah, let me see here. Looking at this first round. Yeah, when Keith Thurman would put that pressure on, look at the first round of the Manny fight, he was being effective because he was making Manny shell up. He was switching levels, going to the body a little bit. Like when he got Manny to the ropes, as Manny would shell up, he would start throwing uppercuts to the body. But the minute he separated and stepped straight back, that's where Manny let go. Like Manny caught him with a right hook. Actually, it wasn't a straight. Yeah, he went straight right, straight left hand to the body. Then he came up with that right hook. And if you back straight up on Manny, yeah, Manny's gonna leap right in, and your hands are down. But yeah, as I'm looking at round 5, when round 5 came around, Manny was blocking a lot of punches and taking a lot of punches. Ooh, hard right hand from Keith Thurman in the 5th round. Like he started to take a lot of blows there. Yeah, Keith Thurman's straight right hand started to land a little bit more. But Manny continued to pump his jab out. But Keith his double jab was working there. His double jab was working. Yeah, there was a lot of back and forth in the Keith Thurman and Manny Pacquiao fight. That's why it makes the Errol Spence fight look a little bit more dangerous for Manny, because you can't go back and forth with Errol. Dalton said, got to put Errol Spence at number 1 and Crawford at number 2. After that car crash, we still have to see if Errol is the same fighter before the crash. Honestly, I think Errol's not the same fighter. Maybe Manny sees something. Yeah, I think that's been their goal. They think they see something. They're kind of dependent on something they see. Kind of like how Mikey Garcia said, right? You know, Mikey said, I see something. I see something in Errol. But yeah, we'll just have to see what it is come fight night. I mean, I think maybe, you know, psychologically, after coming back into that first fight with Danny Garcia, there might have been a little bit of rust in there on Errol. And like I said, just kind of shaking that, you know, those jitters off of putting your body through some punishment again. You know, I know a car accident, you know, it's different, but, you know, he's been doing fighting for so long. But maybe just going in there and testing his body out, maybe there was some jitters in there, but maybe he's shaking it off after that past few months of training. Ooh, he says you got Crawford beating both Errol and Manny. Errol and Manny, I mean Errol and Terrence. It's a tough call for me. I could see where you're saying that though. Like, I feel Terrence got a few more tools than Errol. You know, I think Errol uses his strength and his size well and his power well, but he has boxing IQ. But I think Terrence, he has more tools where he can he mentally breaks fighters down. You know, he's got a good body attack. Sometimes he'll lose rounds that kind of gives fighters false confidence, and then boom, he comes back. And, you know, especially when he switches southpaw, you know, Terrence is like a genius at that. You know, whenever he might be down a round or two, he gives you that false confidence. He comes right back, and then he's into the fight, and he's dominating, and he's knocking you out. You know, so Terrence, I could see where you say that. I'm not sure in that fight, but yeah, I can see Terrence Crawford beating Manny at this point as well. You know, taking what Floyd did, I could see he could do that and maybe be a little bit more effective and maybe even stop Manny. But yeah, that's why we just need to see Errol and Terrence fight now, man. We need to see that fight ASAP. So Errol does have a tool, both Crawford and Manny don't. Size. Right. Yeah, his you know, if Errol can be dominant with his size and strength throughout the welterweight division, that will be his key, you know, into this Manny fight. And maybe if Terrence fight ever happens, that's going to be his big key. Like, you know, Errol is very durable. Like, he's strong, and, you know, he can take a shot, he can take a punch, and he's got legs. You know, he's got legs for 12 rounds. He's got the legs to go 12. So that's going to be a big weapon of his throughout these tougher fights. You know, even in his fight with Kell Brook, you know, Kell, big, strong welterweight, damn near about the same size, right, as Errol, but he was very effective in that fight. You know, eventually he was able to just stay consistent and stay in the fight against Kell Brook until eventually, you know, he broke him down. But yeah, I also heard Keith Thurman versus Sean Porter 2 is happening. I heard that fight is coming close to being signed for I think September. I think the month after this fight. Yeah, Thurman and Porter supposed to run it back. What, 5 years later? Yeah. Yeah, so let me see. I've been on here a little bit longer than I was going to be, but yeah, I'll probably get back on here again and we'll talk about this fight a little bit more because there's a few other things I just want to cover. I just want to look at some more footage here. You know, just comparing old Manny to new Manny, or older Manny to the old Manny now. I want to go back and look at some things and really see like what can he do? What can he do? Because he really went stationary a few times in that Thurman fight, and the way he would turn out at the angle his hands were down, you can't do that against Errol Spence. You really can't. Yeah, you really can't. Ooh, like Thurman. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the fight right now. Yeah, round 6, Thurman's straight right hand was really starting to land. And he started getting a groove in a few rounds. He just wasn't letting his punches go enough. And, Thurman started bleeding. He was bleeding a little bit. He started falling back too much. You can't fall back, man, on Manny. You got to stay in his chest. When you give Manny hope by separating and give him distance, to catch his breath and reload, that's where you fail. So you really got to put pressure on him. Got to put that pressure on him. But yeah, guys, it's been fun, talking some boxing for a change, getting back on this. Probably get back on here more and start doing some more fight breakdowns like this, early looks. We got, Wilder and Fury 3 happening. So I might talk a little bit about that. What else we got? What other major fights we got coming up? Let's see. Look at this fight schedule here real quick before I go. Let's see. Okay. Yo, coach, what's going on, man? Just had to come on here and talk a little bit of boxing, man. We finally got a good fight, coach. So had to get on here and talk about this fight a little bit, because the more boxing comes back, the more I'll start talking about more fights. I'll start talking more fights when we get fights like this, right? I mean, yeah, but this is it's gonna be interesting, man. Gonna be interesting. And no, I ain't watching Teron Woodley versus Paul. Well, Jamal Charlo, he got a fight coming up. Jamal without fighting a big name is Juan Montiel. Tank comes back against Mario Barrios. Yeah, we need some more big fights, y'all. We need some more big fights happening, though. Yeah, we do. Yeah, I don't see nothing on the schedule right now. It's a major fight. I mean, guys are staying active somewhat, but yeah, nothing too big coming up, y'all. So yeah, man, I might get back on here later about 7 and talk some WMMA. That's what we usually do over here. But yeah, let me get up out of here, y'all. I'll see y'all about 7 o'clock again. Just wanted to talk Manny and Spence, see what y'all think about this fight. But yeah, I'll be back on, guys. See y'all at 7. Combo Breaker 99. I'm out. Subscribe. Peace.